Well, good afternoon and welcome to Water Rights Advisory Work Group. Thanks y'all for joining us today. Hold on just a minute, while we get some logistics worked out. All right, sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties on this end. Running through logistics for the meeting today, what we try to remind everybody to do is to keep your cameras and your microphones off while we run through the items on the agenda today. We have a spot for question and answers at the very end. But we do want to go ahead and allow folks to answer or ask questions after presentations today, because some of our speakers have got to cut out after their presentations today to go to other meetings. So want to make sure we are able to get questions answered on topics that may be more likely to have some questions. So I'm about to turn it over to Jason, but just to kind of wrap up, I didn't introduce myself when I got on. I'm Kim Nygren. I'm the Deputy Director for the Water Availability Division, where we do water rights permitting and house our water master programs for the agency. And with that, I will introduce Jason Godo and let him run through our agenda today. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Kim. So we're going to start our meeting with Kathy Alexander and Kathy Humphreys, as well as Amy Browning, to talk about public involvement plans. And then after that, we will have a legal update from our legal group with Ruth Takita. And then Brooke McGregor is going to get on and talk about our water rights permitting and availability section and the updates that she has for that. And then last, we'll have Pepe Davila come on and talk about any updates to the Water Master Program. And as Kim mentioned, we'll have some final Q&A. And if for some reason they're not here at the end to answer any questions, I'll encourage everyone to send those to me. And I'll give you my email address at the end if you have any additional questions, and we'll get answers to you as soon as we can. So with that, let's start with our public involvement plans. And I'll have to get that presentation up. Just 1 second. All right, go ahead, Kathy.
Good afternoon. I am Kathy Humphreys with the Environmental Law Division. I'm here to give some background, excuse me, on TCEQ's public involvement plan. Then Kathy Alexander will discuss how the Water Rights Program is implementing it. In 2019, complaints were filed with the EPA alleging that TCEQ discriminates on the basis of natural origin against residents of Texas who have limited English proficiency in the administration of the agency's permitting and public engagement programs. On November 3rd of 2020, TCEQ and EPA entered into an informal resolution, agreement regarding the complaint. With the agreement in place, EPA resolved the complaint on November 4th, 2020. As a result of the agreement, in addition to new rule requirements, the agency is required to implement the new Public Participation Plan and Language Access Plan. Next slide, please. Permit applicants have an important role in ensuring effective public participation. In addition to hosting meetings when required and providing information by statute and regulations, applicants may be required to provide simultaneous oral interpretation in an alternative languages at certain public meetings, as well as provide notices in alternative languages. Applicants may also be required to provide a plain language summary of an application to inform the public about a proposed new rule. The Public Participation Plan is intended to be a guide for applicants to use. We understand that implementation of the plans is new to everyone and is a work in progress that will evolve over time. And with that, I turn the rest of the presentation over to Kathy Alexander.
Okay, hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Kathy Alexander with Water Availability Division. And I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about how this would apply in water rights permitting context. Jason, next slide. Okay, so the public involvement plans, all the forms and instructions are available on TCEQ's Title VI website. And I've given you kind of a screenshot here of the fact that we do have instructions and as well as the form to help you navigate through our form. Next slide, please, Jason. Okay, so the way the form is set up is there's a, as Kathy said, it's to kind of help determine whether additional outreach or alternative languages could be necessary. So it starts with a preliminary screening. And in the instructions, there are water rights specific instructions. So I've given you kind of the top box that you see is the form, and the bottom box are your instructions. So for water right permit applicants, you're either a new permit or an amendment. And so in the instructions, it identifies new permits as new appropriations of water or new reservoirs. And amendments are that would be covered by the plan would be to add a new appropriation of water, to add a new reservoir, or a major amendment that could affect other water rights and the environment. And so this would be the preliminary screening. So next slide, Jason. So who is required to complete the form? And based on the preliminary screening criteria, the form is not required for applications that only move a diversion point, add a purpose or place of use, or other non-substantive changes to a water right, which we sometimes see, or it could be a combination of those types of things. But if you're adding a diversion point and adding a use, you would not need to fill out this form. If you are asking for a new appropriation, if you want to permit a new reservoir, add new water, or you're asking to reuse wastewater effluent, you would fill out the form. And so that would then take you to the secondary screening criteria. So Jason, next slide. And I want to spend a little bit of time on this because so some of those applications I mentioned, you can see that first checkbox requires public notice. That means published notice. So if you were a reuse application under 11.042 of the water code, you would not check that box because you don't, those type of applications don't require publication notice. And that on the topic of considered to have significant public interest, that would be if an application in those areas typically has a lot of concern from the citizens, or if you're located within any of the following geographical areas, which you can see the list there, and these are also listed in the form. And as the instructions state, if all of the boxes are not checked, the public involvement plan is not necessary. So while some of our applicants may need to fill out the form, they would not continue with the form if they don't meet the secondary screening criteria. Jason, next slide. So as I talked about on the public notice thing, you would check yes if the application requires published notice in a newspaper. On significant public interest, as you know, we require pre-application meetings for water right applications, and that would definitely be something we would talk with applicants about, based on our experience and permitting actions. So for an example of significant public interest, that would be something like a major water supply reservoir project, that would probably qualify for significant public interest. But, you know, you could be a much smaller project that say has one entity that might typically contest that type of project. That would not be considered to be significant public interest. But again, we would be talking about that during the pre-application meeting. Next slide, Jason. And the geographic area, there are some links in the instruction forms to, so if you're looking at whether I'm in the Austin, Round Rock, Georgetown MSA or Dallas, Fort Worth MSA, that's Metropolitan Statistical Area, there is a link in the application instructions that will help you make that determination. And I've given you like a graphic here of what that looks like. Next slide, Jason. So for the remainder of applicants, if you check all three boxes in the secondary screening, then you would fill out the rest of the form. That includes a plain language summary. And when we say plain language summary, we mean that would be something the applicant would produce, and it would be a description of the application without legalese or permitting type language, just something that a member of the general public could read and easily understand what you're trying to do. There's a section 5 that walks you through how you make a determination on whether alternate language notice or any of the other public participation things would be required. And that's at the, there are some pretty specific instructions for water rights, because, you know, in many water rights applications, the actual facility may not be where the water's being used. And so there is a good deal of detail in the instructions. There's a section 6 that talks about what the planned public outreach activities are. So for an example, you know, if you're an application for an interbasin transfer, that requires notice. I mean, there are public meetings involved with that. And then there's a section 7 that will discuss any other voluntary actions that you've taken. And we do have a lot of support for this process if you're an application that falls, that is not screened out through the secondary screening criteria. Last slide, Jason. And so we do have a Title VI dedicated email address, which you can see there on your screen. Or if you have water rights specific questions, feel free to reach out to me, and my email address is up there. And this concludes the presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Does anyone have any questions? And I failed to mention during the intro, if you do have a question, please use the raise your hand function, or you can type it in the chat and we will address it at that time. All right. Not seeing any questions, so we'll move to our next topic, which is a legal update with Ruth Takita.
Thank you, Jason. As Jason mentioned, I'm Ruth Takita, a staff attorney at the Environmental Law Division here at the agency. I just have some brief information to share with you about the Office of Legal Services. Our management chain has experienced a bit of a shift. Erin Chancellor, who is our director in the Office of Legal Services, is currently serving as the interim executive director for the agency. In her stead, the acting director is Charmaine Backens, who usually is our environmental law deputy director. So the acting deputy director for my division is Guy Henry. As far as cases goes, I've been keeping y'all posted on an appeal of a TCEQ decision, the National Wildlife Federation suit that has been set for hearing in the spring. We also have 3 cases currently pending at the State Office of Administrative Hearings. Applications by the San Antonio Water System, by the City of Wichita Falls and by the Port of Corpus Christi Authority of Nueces County. Those 3 cases have been set for contested case hearings later this year. And that they're all in the process of discovery, by the way, in case you're wondering where they're at. They're all set for hearings on the merit later this year. We'll be busy with that. With that said, that was a really quick, very hastily spoken update because I am one of the people who needs to exit the meeting fairly soon. And Jason, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ruth. Does anybody have any questions on those updates that Ruth gave us? All right, not seeing any, we'll move on to our next topic, which is an update from the Water Rights Permitting and Availability section with Brooke McGregor. Brooke?
Thanks, Jason. As Jason said, I'm Brooke McGregor. I'm the section manager for the Water Rights Permitting and Availability Division section, and I'm gonna give kind of an update on water rights status of things. Okay, so total pending water right applications by technical review group. You know, if for y'all who have been here before, this is the typical presentation that I give. We're down a few in new appropriations and we're down quite a few in diversion points. So far for this fiscal year, we have received quite a lot of fast track applications, and there's a breakdown a little bit further about what that's looked like. And we have a total pending number of 130, but that does not include contested applications. So as Ruth was alluding to earlier, talking about applications that are currently going through the SOA process, we have a very high number of contested case applications that we have pending with us right now. So about, well, exactly 20% of our pending applications have had hearings requested. And then as far as the total number of pending uncontested water rights, you know, this number has kind of dipped below our target, which is 125, and has kind of sort of steadily been hovering plus or minus about 100. So for the year so far, we've received 20 applications. 14 of those have been fast tracks. 3 of them have been House bills, and then the rest of them would be applications that are not either fast tracks or House bills. We've completed 20, 19 have been issued, 0 returned, and 1 withdrawn, and then 26 contested. That's not just in this fiscal year, that is overall. That's how many we have pending with us. Talking a little bit about timeframes and how we're doing on those. Our goal for completing administrative review is 90 days, and you can see that we have 10 so far this year that have not met that target. Probably about a third of those have missed the target by about a week or 2. A third of those have been applications that have had Marshall criteria questions submitted with their application. So that's a little bit more of a review that we have to do for those. And then probably the final third have had requests for information or RFIs that have taken some time to have that back and forth correspondence with the applicants. House bill applications, we've processed 3 so far this year. 2 of them have been on time. The one that did not go on time was one that had some slight notice requirements that had to be noticed to the co-owner for the water right, and then you know, there's some details that go along with that kind of delayed in the processing of that, but it didn't miss 90 by much, but it did bust the timelines on that. Fast track applications, we've processed 11 so far this year, and 2 received hearing requests. So once something gets protested, the timelines can kind of vary quite dramatically from there. So that's what that looks like. That's what those 2 are. And then change of ownership processing timeframes. We do a really good job processing a lot of these very timely. sometimes, you know, there's a lot of deeds or information that can be involved with that. And so we kind of have a lot to look through or have a lot of back and forth requests for information with the applicant. But so that's sort of what the timeframes are looking like. We have some staff updates. We have Natalie Montez, who joined us on the resource protection team. The resource protection team is fully staffed now. And we had 2 folks, Amy and Anthony, join us on the water rights compliance and assurance team as project managers. We have 2 hydrologist vacancies right now. We are in the process of conducting interviews for those. So those positions will hopefully be filled soon. And then this 3 vacancies for the project manager. We have 2 staff who will be starting sometime in February. So they're not here officially yet. And then we'll be looking to fill that last one. So with that, that is all I have, unless anybody has any questions, or are we saving those for the end?
No, we can take questions if anybody has any right now. Okay, not seeing any, so let's move on to our last topic, which is our Water Master updates with Pepe.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Jason. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share a brief Water Master update. I'm gonna begin sharing my presentation here in a second. Okay, can you see that, Jason?
Yes, we can see that.
Okay. I'd like to begin the update with the fiscal year 2023 Water Master Basin evaluations. We're at the early stages of this process for these the basins listed here: Trinity River Basin, San Jacinto River Basin, Trinity San Jacinto Coastal Basin, and the Neches Trinity Coastal Basin. Comment letters are planned to be mailed out in early March. Brief update from the programs, the 4 Water Master programs. The programs have continued with routine investigations while managing increased complaints due to the drought. The May 2022 Sunset Advisory Committee staff report recommended TCEQ evaluate its current use of advisory committees to provide more public involvement in rulemaking and other decision-making processes. The report concluded that TCEQ had been extending the dates of advisory committees through commission resolutions and not the rule. So as it pertains to the Water Master Advisory Committees, TCEQ has engaged in the rulemaking process that will renew the 4 committees until December 31st, 2032. The projected timeline for this process is as follows: following the commissioner's agenda on January 11, 2023. The anticipated Texas Register publication date is January 27. And the anticipated public hearing date is February 27. The anticipated public comment period will run from January 27 through February 28, and the anticipated adoption date is June 14, 2023. In terms of staff updates, I'd like to announce that we have the new Rio Grande Water Master, Georgina P. Bermea. She goes by Gina. Gina has been with the TCEQ for 14 years and has experience in leadership, fieldwork, and administrative practices. Gina received a Bachelor of Science degree in Education Studies from Wayland Baptist University. Gina began her professional career in 1999 in various administrative roles within the private and public sector. She's been with TCEQ since 2008. In April of 2021, she became the Assistant Rio Grande Water Master, overseeing budget, development, field operation, administrative functions, and river operations. We're in the, Dina, if you don't mind turning on your camera, please.
Hello, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. We're in the process of filling Gina's former position, that being the Assistant Water Master for the Rio Grande program. We also have a new addition to the program as well in terms of a deputy vacancy that we had. Samantha Seelman joined the program in the Harjan office early this month. For the South Texas and Concho Water Master programs, Landry Cesare Nash became our South Texas Assistant Water Master in December. And we're in the process of filling the South Texas Administrative Assistant Water Master position. The South Texas Administrative Assistant position, as Diana Rodriguez left TCEQ in the fall. We're fully staffed in the Concho Water Master program, and we're also fully staffed just recently in the Brazos Water Master program, as they have filled 2 Water Master deputies positions in Waco. Alejandro Laje and Carlos Perez are starting this month with the program. And I'd like to conclude the presentation with the drought map. As you can see, the drought has improved in large portions of the water master areas as we navigated out of the summer and fall in 2022. However, it persists in central Texas, and it is projected to persist in large portion of our water master areas. And thank you. That concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you, Pepe. At this time, I think all of our presenters are still here. So if anybody has any final questions that they would like to have answered, either about any of the things that they've seen in these presentations or with water rights, now would be the time to ask those. All right, not seeing any of those. Kim, do you want to conclude the meeting real quick?
Sure. I don't have anything to add except for a big thank you to everyone for joining us here. And a reminder that if you think of a question afterwards or got something you just prefer to ask us directly, you're welcome to reach out to any of the folks that you saw in the meeting today. You can call us in our office or you can email us, whatever way of reaching out you prefer. Thanks again, y'all.